David here with Figboot on Pens. Today I thought I would cover a topic which I've been meaning to get to for a while, and that is wax seals. What I'm going to do today is show you a few different types of wax and seals so you can see what options are out there for you. I will admit that for quite some time I really never had much interest in wax seals. I didn't write that many letters, and what was I going to do? Put a wax seal on my electric bill? But since I started having a lot of correspondence relating to this channel, that I decided to pick up a seal and some wax just to try it out. And I have to say that I really liked it. There's just something about the process, the melting of the wax, the application of the seal. It's all very satisfying. And in the end result is something that, in my opinion, is pretty cool. When you receive a letter with the wax seal, it's that much more special. So, in order to take a look at some wax and some seals, please join me over here at camera 2. What I'm going to be doing today is putting some different seals and waxes on some letters that I need to send out in response to some letters that viewers have sent me. If you'd care to write me a letter, you can find the address to my P.O. box in the notes below each video, and I have committed that if you take the time to write me, then I will write you back. It's fun to hear from you, and it gives me an excuse to use my pens and wax seals, so there's nothing wrong with that. I have 3 different seals and 3 different kinds of wax to look at today, so let's get 3 letters ready to go out into the mail. First up, as of right now, I keep all of my wax seals and supplies here in this box. I have some letters here that need to be sealed. Then I have some stamps that I have here. I have some sports stamps and some dragons and some magic stamps. These are actually international stamps. And then I have some Tomoe River loose leaf paper that I write my letters on. And then I have a bunch of my writing samples from reviews. If you write me a letter, sometimes I include a little extra in with my reply. I tend to give away all these writing samples from reviews. Just something I thought that folks might like to receive that they thought was kind of cool. And then I have the rest of my supplies. First of all, you know what? Here, so you can see where I keep all my supplies. Now let's actually get this out of the picture. First off, in this little bag here, I keep, we'll just call it my rod stock, which is all of these. Let me just go ahead and just pour them all out. And here are these rod stocks. These come in all sorts of colors. Some are a more solid color like these. Some have a little bit more texture to them and more of a blended element. These have a little bit of shimmer to them. And that you can see that since these are the shortest, these are the ones I have a tendency to use. These colors are nice as well, but lately I've been using these a lot. When a rod gets really short like this, usually what I'll do is I'll stick a toothpick on the back, and then that way I can hold it like this and I won't burn my fingers and get down to the last drop of wax. Lately, whenever I attend a pen show, I've been on the lookout for interesting colors. If Papier Plume happens to be in attendance at a show, they typically have a very nice variety. They are rather flexible, and that you can use these in a hot glue gun if you wish. I believe that's what Papier Plume uses when they apply all of the wax to the top of their inks, like this one here. This is House of the Rising Sun, which is actually one of my favorite inks that they have here. And they apply this with a hot glue gun, and then apply this fleur-de-lis stamp on the seal on the top, which is nice. So let's actually go ahead and use this sparkly gray, since it's getting near the end and we could use a little bit more of this. And if you actually wanted to mix colors, you could even use 2 rods at a time, but just for this demonstration, I'm going to use just 1. For a flame, you can use a couple of different things. More often than not, I just find myself using a lighter, but then if I'm doing a lot of letters in a row, I will find that this does get rather hot. And so usually, if I'm doing a lot, then I'll use a lighter like this. Let's go ahead and seal up this letter that I need to get here in the mail. And the seal that I'm going to use for this one is the very first seal that I picked up, which is just a nice letter D for David. Now, let's go ahead and start to apply this. Now, when you apply this, you need to make sure that you're not applying too much wax. That's going to create too large of a seal, and that it could have a chance to get caught up in the machinery in the mail system. With these rods, I typically let it dry, or I'll let it drip around 10 times. Sometimes it can get hard to count because the wax will occasionally flow rather than drip. Now, it's hard for me to count and talk at the same time, so I'm guessing that was about 10. So once I'm done, I actually smear it around, and once I'm done smearing it around, I actually twist the top so then it's not leaking, as then I reach over and apply the seal. And I let it sit here just for a second. And then there you go. Now, if for some reason you happen to get a little wax like this on the outside of the seal, usually what I do is just right away, I just peel that off, and then I just stick it right to the top. So then it can get used the next time around. One thing with seals, you'll notice here in the front, there is a little dot here, and that's the orientation, so that faces you so that you know which way your D can go. And then there we have this nice seal with this nice gray wax that has some nice texture to it. If you're doing more than just a couple of seals, you need to be aware of the temperature of your seal. The more you use it, the more it will heat up, and when it heats up, then the wax will have a harder time solidifying, and then more wax will get stuck on the side of the seal, just like you saw here first. And so usually what I do, in order to prevent this from heating up, I have this little piece of marble that I use as a heat sink. This is actually a magnet that I picked up at the Coral Castle Museum in Miami. If you're not familiar with what the Coral Castle is, it's a pretty interesting place that has some interesting history to it. Basically, one man built this huge building all by himself, and no one quite knows how he moved all of these enormous pieces of coral that weigh tons and tons. But it's an interesting place to visit. But in between, I'll set that on there so that it will help cool off the seal. The next seal I wanted to use is a custom seal that I had made. That I thought it would be cool to have a seal of my initials. And you might recognize this from my writing sample that I do during my reviews. I had this custom seal made by Papier Plume. For this seal, let's go ahead and use some wax beads. There's some things I really like about these beads and some things that I don't like. First of all, they come in a nice variety of colors, and it takes 2 beads to make a seal. So you can use 2 of the same color if you'd like, or you can make a cool color combination. Let's just actually reach in here and get a random color combination. So we have, boy, I can't get one out. We have, what do we have? White and red. So now for these beads, I have a little kit. I have a couple little votive candles, which I really don't feel work very well, and a couple of different spoons. Now I have, let's see, let's go ahead and get in here. Now I have this one here that has a little wooden handle on it, and then I have another one that I keep here in this little Altoid box. I kind of crinkled down the side so the spoon could stick out, and I keep this in here because when you heat up the bottom, then soot gets all over the bottom of the spoon and it can make a mess. Whenever I pull out this little bag, I think that if I ever got pulled over by the police with this on me, that I'd have some explaining to do. I'd be like, "No, officer, this isn't drug paraphernalia. This is for stationery." Now, this spoon is somewhat clean, but you can see that this one here actually has some remnants of some red and gold that I had in here previously. And that's fine, because that will just melt the next time I use this spoon and then add a little extra color to the mix. So let's go ahead and use this one. We go ahead and we're going to put these 2 beads in there. And for this one, let's just go ahead and use the lighter. Here is another letter. Whoops. Let's go ahead and get that back. And let's go ahead and light this. And, you know, that it does tend to produce a little bit of smoke as I breathed on the candle or breathed on the flame. And and it went out. And that, you know, once you see the beads completely disappear, then you can pour them on the letter. Now, I do find that these can be a bit messier because inevitably a little wax drips over the side and then onto the bottom of the spoon where all of that soot is. And you can see here that it has a tendency to smoke a little bit. That's why I have that tin, so I could have some place that I immediately set this down. So once you see it completely disappear, then it is ready to pour. And you can just pour this right on here. And then I set it inside my little metal tin here so that it doesn't make a mess. And right away, then I can go ahead and use this seal. And you can see that this created a nice mix of both red and white. And so that made kind of an interesting combination of colors. And with all of those combinations of colors, you could make just about any combination you would like. And I think the combination ends up looking kind of cool. Last up, we have a seal that was given to me by a viewer by the name of Ryan, and what we have here is a Direwolf, which is the symbol of House Stark in Game of Thrones. For this seal, I have a different kind of wax. It is the kind where there is a wick actually built in. You can see this is what it looks like when you start, and then this is what it looks like after a few uses with the wick burnt down just a little bit. Now, what happens here is you can go ahead and just light this wick up. And I do find that this one takes a little bit longer to drip if you're using just the wick. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. We'll count out the drips. 1, 2, 3. You can see this one takes a little bit longer. 4, 5, 6. And one of the downsides, 7, is that normally I smear the wax around with the end, but you can't really do that with the wick there. So you have to end up using the opposite end, which I'll do here in just a second. We'll just rotate this around. This one's taking its sweet time. Okay, I think that might be good enough. So we blow that out. You can see that there's a little bit of smoke there, and then it actually stays a little bit red hot, so you got to be careful of that. If you're doing a bunch of these, the room can get really smoky. And then usually I'll just use the end to smear this around. And you can see actually some of the soot got in here as well. And we will apply the seal. Sometimes you have a little extra drip in there. Sometimes that just adds a little bit of personality to it. And there we have the Direwolf seal. So these letters are ready for the mailbox. Addition to some other ones that I had sealed up earlier. Like I said at the top of this video, I've really grown to enjoy the process of applying wax seals. It just adds a little something extra to your correspondence that I think is pretty cool. I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit about wax seals. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.